Oh, again, thanks for joining us for the segment. As always, we want you to get interactive. And talking about getting interactive, please make sure you log on to our Facebook page, Joy News on TV. It has a link on our Twitter handle at Joy News on TV. And also, we have a number for our WhatsApp platform, 056800,000. But for many of us, the run up to the main election that will be convened on the 7th of November 2016 is crucial. But throughout the electioneering, is the way the various stakeholders and the parties, and indeed the entire citizenry, all the electorates comport themselves, that is important. And so peace, we say, is a cardinal principle that is observed, or a fulcrum around which good elections tend to run. But because we have experienced a lot more elections since 1992, we should say we've been most fortunate. But some of those elections have been dotted with some hot spots or perhaps some tensions. Well, we have an election coming up. How do we make sure that we create the needed synergy among the best stakeholders we have, and also create the best atmosphere to ensure there's a credible election that will be convened towards the close of the year? We have in the studio international relations as well as security analyst Aribad Ibrahim. But today, he's here also as a peace ambassador for election 2016 and a member of the World Christianity and Islam Organization. And we say thanks for joining us.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And apparently you've been convalescing following an incident. I should say, I should express my thanks to God, especially to keep you up to this very level, because you're very consistent with giving us the best analysis in the media.
Oh, thank you so much.
I wish you speedy recovery as well.
I'm recuperating, and there's no cause for alarm. Everybody's life is punctuated with times of tribulations. So I had mine in August last year. But it's all history now, and I believe we should pick up the pieces and move on. So I'm recuperating quite well.
Okay, that's live. For the organization you represent, for which you're an ambassador for peace, what does it mean?
I think for so long my efforts have been international peace, the need for the Middle East to put its act together so that sectarian violence, this Tunisiaite divide, and I know you're an international person, you are keenly following the severance of diplomatic ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran that are the largest, sectarian actors in the region. So for so long, the engagement has been on that level, but we can't be talking peace as global citizens of the world and forget peace in our various countries. So therefore, I'm a Ghanaian first before I become a global citizen. And therefore, as we move into the elections, and as our research has shown that more than 80% of the time, young people around my age are those that are used as cannon fodder to stoke political violence. So therefore, the onus lies upon us to speak to like-minded people like us, young people, young impressionable people that could be used by either the NDC or the MPP, with the mushrooming of quasi-military groups like the Invincible Forces Azoka Boys. We intended to start the campaign quite early so that we spread the need for us to keep the peace. Ghana is seen as a bastion of peace and stability in the West African sub-region, and therefore we can't afford to go wrong this time round. This is deja vu for us. We went to the polls in 92, 96, 2000, up to 2012. And therefore, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the peace we kept throughout these former elections, I believe, can be replicated during this election. But the stakes now are much higher. And therefore, we need to give the needed conscientization to the youth so that moving into November, they don't allow themselves to be used to foment any form of violence. So that is the crusade. That is the campaign message. And I keep telling people, for anybody who's schooled in Legon or the university and KNUST, most of the time you would find only few sons and daughters of ministers or politicians. Some of them are studying in Harvard or Oxford. So don't allow yourself to be enticed or by somebody to carry out any act of violence that could cause you to lose a limb, or in a worst case scenario, lose your life. So that has been the campaign message, and I believe it's making the needed waves, and 2016 will come and go, and our dear nation will continue to be the peaceful, tight-knit, and stable country we have.
We'll be touching on some crucial issues as well, and we know that as far as we're concerned, we've had some some indicators already. We've seized a number of arms. We've had some flashpoints at party headquarters, and it's not only peculiar to the NPP, NDC as well. We've had some actions of people that tend to give us what is likely to happen ahead. Yeah. Should we be worried about that?
We should be.
What should we be doing also?
Roland, if you could have the kind of caches of weapons we saw with the Ivorian or Burkina Bay in Kumasi, and if you look at the caliber of weapons, anti-aircraft machine guns, what are they doing in Ghana? Even in active theaters of warfare like Somalia, like Libya and other countries, you hardly, traverse the borders with such lethal material. And to add insult to injury, Kumasi isn't a border town. If it were at a Aflao or a Lubo or Paga, we would understand. But they had the effrontery to cross multiple military and police checkpoints to transport this contraband from any entry point, whether one of the 40...
Because it's
42.
almost as if it's in the middle of nowhere. So at the end of the day, it means that borders and checkpoints have been breached. People have been compromised.
Is either someone was sleeping on the job, or this was done with a tacit approval?
Is that a great worry for you?
It should be enough worry for any country.
Sign?
Look, in the Gambia, when Yahya Jammeh had traveled abroad, people wanted to torpedo his regime. They used less weapons than what we saw arraigned before the cameras in Kumasi. I have been even presumptuous enough to call for a state of emergency, a declaration of a state of emergency, so that we can connect the dots. Nobody really knows what is happening. If you have a country that says it's a peaceful country and people can cut in 1 million cartridges of bullets, in Rwanda, less than 1 million people were killed for us to call it a genocide. And every single bullet can take away the life of a baby and take away the life of a president, just as it did in the case of John F. Kennedy. So therefore, these are extraordinary security times, and we need robust, extraordinary security responses.
Talking about what should be robust, have we been up to it? Do you get the inclination that we're up to it?
Half-baked inquiries have not been impressive. You remember a few months ago, an OA commercial bus was intercepted with fresh boxes of munitions. We don't know how far they've gone with investigations. So that doesn't imbue confidence in the Ghanaian populace about what our security agencies are doing. You give us the red light that, yes, we've intercepted something. Who was behind it? You don't arrest only the driver and his courier and his conductor, who are couriers, and then think you've got the guy who was behind the import. Look, weapons are like cars. Every car comes with a unique chassis number, and therefore there are serial numbers on every weapon. So for as long as these munitions are not manufactured locally, you should be able to trace the weapons manufacturer, whether a state or non-state actor, know who imported the weapons and why the weapons were moving through our jurisdiction. But this couldn't be a driver and his mate or conductor. There could be hidden hands behind this, either to exacerbate the conflict we have in flashpoint areas like Boko, the Alavan and Nkonya area, or this could be a stockpile lying in wait for violence during the 2016 elections. So the response has not been robust enough. I don't think we are up to the task. Our Interior Minister has come out to say there is no cause for alarm. Let's take his words for it, because he's got access to classified pieces of information and he gets daily briefings about the security of the nation. But the facade of porosity we have through our terrestrial, maritime and aerial entry points, if Naila Metefe could go aboard an airliner with 5 kilos of cocaine in the most secure entry point you have.
So we should be worried.
We should be worried.
What should we be doing?
I think we can't...
Both state actors and non-state actors.
You can't, employ Gaggisberg security architecture to the evolving security challenges of the sub-region.
As our current apparatus for fighting crime and making sure we tighten security.
We've lost it.
It's obsolete.
We've lost it because, look, if you do the same border checks you used to do 20 years ago when Boko Haram didn't exist, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb didn't exist, the Libyan crisis didn't exist, you can't continue to employ that same rudimentary way of looking at security. Times have changed. The Sahel region is awash with weapons, and no country is insulated from the movement of such, armaments.
You seem very passionate about it, but how then do we put into perspective what we're hearing, that we even want to accept Is it 2 Guantanamo or Gitmo prisoners?
I'm sure they will be domiciled with Roland. Maybe you would have to interact with them. Ghanaians have been quite apprehensive about...
I am apprehensive, I think.
You don't have to be. I would want to assuage your wariness that there is no cause for alarm, and these are former Guantanamo detainees. And I believe the conflict resolution approach of DDR might have already taken place before considering Ghana as a hub for such people for their rehabilitation. DDR, disarmament, demobilization, and rehabilitation. So the Al-Qaeda or Taliban guy that was arrested in 2002 will not be the same Yemeni who will be brought to Ghana, for example. So they've been disarmed, they've been demobilized, so they don't have access to other actors on the ground currently. And ours as a part of the community of nations is to help in their rehabilitation. Some of them are considered pariahs in their own countries. So the international community cannot safeguard their security when they go back. So therefore, if they want to use us as a stopgap measure...
So it means what? They'll be living in houses just like everybody else?
No. There will be extraordinary security checks. I believe the American ambassador to the United States, Joseph Smith, had to even travel to Guantanamo Bay to interact with those people. The needed profiling, screening, and background security checks have already been done. And they will not have the liberty to be moving around. At such a crucial moment that we've got information, some Ghanaians have actually been recruited by ISIS. Al-Qaeda essentially transmogrified into ISIS. So if you bring commanders, former ISIS commanders or Al-Qaeda commanders close to the doorsteps of Ghanaians, then that recruitment will be much easier. But I believe they will not have the liberty. What does it take to give asylum to a person? Edward Snowden and other people...
Okay, so you're telling us we should be empathetic and sympathetic?
Yeah, on the grounds of humanitarianism.
Among
Syria,
the Committee of Nations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Syria didn't choose to go to war.
For all the things that you've said about ISIS and how it's quite worrisome, we have the increased activities of Boko Haram in the sub-region. How does that play in the milieu of all that we're about to do, the elections?
Now, I don't think this could be used as a recruitment bonanza. And some have tried to establish a nexus between the decision and the timing of our elections. It's just coincidental.
Well, not necessarily the decision, but the activities of the paramilitary groups, the sectarian groups, etc., operating in the sub-region.
I think Barack Obama made a campaign promise. And American politicians are not like African ones. They make good on their promises. He campaigned on the platform that he would end the war in Afghanistan, end the war in Iraq, and shut down Guantanamo Bay. America goes to the polls in November, the first Tuesday in November. So therefore, I think he doesn't have too much time on his hands. So he's decided to make this foreign policy decision. And therefore, that is what he wants to do. But as a nation, we know that there are a few Ghanaian young people that are inclined to radicalization. But I don't think we are yet on the radar of any such groups like Boko Haram. Those who are fighting Boko Haram are neighboring nations to Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, and Chad.
So we shouldn't be worried?
You shouldn't be worried at all. These are only 2 people. We aren't talking about an influx of 1,000 former Al-Qaeda or Taliban activists.
I'm not even dwelling still on the 2 people. I'm talking about the activities of those groups and how perhaps the tension that may be created prior to the election could be a festering atmosphere for them to undertake whatever it is they have to. I think
I've also always said that the final straw that breaks the camel's back in putting any nation on the hit list of such groups is your military engagement in those theaters of warfare, and that still stands. We lost our honor because Kenya had deployed troops into Somalia. Mali, Niger, and Chad have been attacked because they've got military commitments in the fight against Boko Haram. Ghana is only contributing to MINUSMA, which is a UN-sanctioned peacekeeping force in Mali. We aren't helping Nigeria to fight Boko Haram. We aren't helping countries of the Sahel.
Well, we have small troops with the UN.
Yeah, so the contingent, the contingent we have abroad is not an offensive one going on the onslaught. We are helping with peacekeeping, and our status as the 5 most significant contributor of troops for peacekeeping should be maintained. Let's not be offensive. Let's not poke our nose into the military engagement of certain countries, I think that is the only time we would have crossed the Rubicon, and there would be repercussions, a blowback in the form of suicide attacks and all that, that would affect us. But we've not gotten there yet.
All right. At what point do we have to say for a country that has organized many elections, and now I have to say many elections, because once you go beyond the period of 5 or even 2, after 2 is several.
Yeah, exactly.
So in English,
that's true.
Why shouldn't we be complacent?
The stakes are much higher.
Why?
I didn't vote in '96. I was too young to have voted. I only had my voter's ID card in 2004. But historically, when you look at the antecedent of weapons stockpiling, a year before an election has always been the interesting piece within the jigsaw puzzle about our national security. But what we saw in 2015 was quite extraordinary. The weapons were quite much more sophisticated. They were much more numerous in terms of magnitude. So therefore, we should be concerned with the mushrooming of groups like Invincible Forces, Azoka Boys, which have all these years existed, but we've seen a lot of activity in that regard as well. So we should be concerned, but I believe Ghana will continue to be the tight-knit, peaceful, stable nation it is. But we can't, take chances. That is why I've come out to say the decision of the EC to throw the accusations and allegations of the opposition through the window is a mistake. I think there was bad faith in the declaration of the stance of the EC. I needed to have seen enough consensus building at the IPAC level so that when the EC chairman would announce this to Ghanaians, she would be flanked by NDC and MPP executives.
You're saying there's no consensus as far as...
There isn't. How can you say there is consensus?
As far as among the stakeholders as we head towards
It's a wrong move. It's a wrong move. And
how can that also help in bridging the animosity gap, when we know that no matter what we think, that the 2 main political actors have groups, whether they are armed or not, they don't intend punishing them for whatever crimes they commit, and as a result of that, for you analysts, it's a serious worry for you when you get to do the analysis on their actions and their activities.
I think about a fortnight ago, I sat on Talking Point with Superintendent Cephas Arthur, and I made it quite clear. Politics has, found its way into our national security posturing as a nation, and therefore you find very few people ready to bite the bullet and take the needed security steps to forestall such political violence. And I've said it, just as I said immediately after the Talensi by-election, security agencies should disband these quasi-military or militia groups we have in various political parties. And I'm happy, I don't know whether it was as a consequence of that program or any other discussions we've had, that the IGP has said they are going to disband them. So therefore, that is the first step to take. Disband them without any fear of political vendetta or repercussions for taking such a robust step. Then moving forward, psych the Ghanaian people. I think our understanding of politics needs a complete overhaul. Ghanaians do not believe in industry and hard work. When you work for multimedia for 30 years before you build your first house, you are seen as a failure. So it's better you do politics in 2-3 years, you build yourself a mansion. So people find it as a means of enriching themselves. So it becomes either a source of eking out a livelihood or losing out. So therefore, this level of unwarranted passion, this level of, dogmatism we approach politics with should be something civil society organizations, the NCCE, faith-based organizations, individual actors within the country, we need to create that awareness that you are putting yourself up for national service.
As a peace ambassador, how do you intend reaching out to all these groups? To the political parties, to the various Christian groups, the Islamic groups, and the other groupings we have as far as religion and other words or worships of faith?
Violence comes in different forms. sectarian violence is not a problem in Ghana. What we have is ethnic violence and potential political violence. Even with that, I use a caveat, because if we put our acts together and do the right things, I think Ghana will come out of this a much more solid and formidable nation. So we are using mass media, television and radio, which we've done for so long, but we're also touching base with young people across the country. I'm up to give, and do speaking engagements. I do that with international universities, with franchises in Ghana, like Webster University. But I need to go to Ghanaian universities, polytechnics, ethnic groups, faith-based organizations, nursing colleges.
So that's what you intend to do this very year?
Yeah, and anybody, any school or institution or group that wants to have me can email to peaceambassador2016 at gmail.com, peaceambassador2016 at gmail.com.
And your number? You don't want to?
No. So we want to touch base.
Get a number so that we can always.
Yeah, we want to touch base.
Get a formal number, so know your personal number so that we can announce.
Okay, so for a number you can, transact with us vis-a-vis this peace campaign, you can use a number that is not my personal number, 0261 932 194, 0261 932 194. So we can't be paying lip service to peace. And I believe with the media being decorous, with the media putting the needed checks and balances, I was shocked when Boss FM called me for an interview yesterday and played a tape to me about the youth of organizer in the Ashanti region, saying that they've prepared a cache of sharpened, machete for people as they move into the elections. So the NMC and the LI that has come to empower and authorize the NMC has come at quite an opportune time. So sanitize the political discourse, number one. Get us to touch base with young people like us. We can relate much more. They will have a sense of belonging. And let's intensify the campaign and call for peace. And I believe 2016 will come and go. What is politics, Roland? The NDC says the current livelihood I've had over the past few years of doomsaw, some semblance of infrastructural development, paying more for utility, paying more for petroleum, but with promises of only taking this as a swallowing a better pill with better goodies to come later. If I'm content with that, I vote the NDC, and I'm at no daggers drawn with anybody. But if as a Ghanaian, I'm not convinced about the trajectory the party is taking us, and I believe the NPP provides a much convincing manifesto, I would vote the NPP, and I would not be at daggers drawn with anybody. So that is the kind of understanding. Elsewhere, election days are not holidays. You go to work, you do your normal stuff, you even vote online sometimes. That tells you how little that means about what makes you a rich person, what makes you impoverished, the way we've taken the understanding.
The government of Ghana has responded to calls to accommodate some persons from Rwanda as well as Syria and Yemen due to the grave humanitarian crisis in those countries. And I guess it's all in respect of the Gitmo prisoners we're accepting.
Roland, you've been to the Middle East before. You've traveled to the Maghreb.
Several, yeah.
Look, Arabs are very hard-working people.
Very. I love their tradition, their culture too.
Yeah, especially Syrians. Syrians are artisans. They are highly skilled. They've got the acumen to help our manufacturing and industrial sector. So therefore, for the Syrians in particular, I think Ghana should be ready to open their doors. We all have issues about what happened in Paris. And 8 guys that attacked Paris and held it hostage, killing 130 people. Some of them were Syrian returnees, people who had trained with ISIS. But you can screen them. They can help in Ghana's economy. Germany wants some of these people. So if Ghana is given the opportunity, I know Syrians that are here and they are doing quite well. And some of them have actually moved their families into the country. So there is no cause for alarm. I believe the war in Rwanda has gone stale. And therefore, so former Rwandan, militia people and rebels should not be a cause for concern for our national security. Let's do due diligence. We've done it before. It's déjà vu. We created Bujumbura camp to help people in their time of distress by providing them solace and redress. So we've done this, and we have a strong handle on it, and I think we should be able to pull this off.
Well, we'll see how that goes. We wish you all the best as you get to undertake all this, but we would want also to have you, and we know that Thursdays and Fridays will be the opportune time for us to interact a lot more, see how you're progressing with this. because we know you have an itinerary, you want to make sure that by the time the elections are over, we've been able to reach out as stakeholders.
Exactly, Roland.
To reach out to the various stakeholders that are also out there.
Exactly,
to see reason why we need a peaceful election.
Yeah, but finally, I think the call for the arrest of Dr. Baumia is preposterous. You see, look, Roland, you can't be talking peace and you create the conducive, enabling environment for violence. Look, the decisions we take today will have an overarching impact on our nation's national security. So making
So you
such
believe
calls,
such utterances are not the best?
they are unnecessary.
Okay.
They are not founded on any rationale. And therefore, let's go into this. If you want to defeat the NPP, do so on a clean sheet, without any rancor or acrimony. But if we give people cause to complain about the results of the elections, if we give people cause to complain about political persecution, then we are laying the groundwork for potential political violence. So let's take the right steps. The EC should be an unbiased and neutral umpire going into this so that nobody will feel victimized or oppressed at the end of the day, and would go and come out of the elections as a tight-knit nation, stable and enjoying the peace we've enjoyed in the past few decades. So our politicians should make the right decisions. You see, people may have the impetus to take a machete or take a rifle because of a sense of injustice. You can't be asking for peace when there is no justice. And justice delayed is justice denied. So when an NDC activist does something, the same sledgehammer he's treated with should be commensurate with how we treat a PPP or NPP activist. So that go into these elections, a ferociously contested election, but it should be clean. So that at the end of the day, if you defeat any political party, it will have no cause whatsoever to throng the streets and use violence to contest the elections. So political decisions we make from now to November will determine whether we can keep the peace or we will lose out as a nation.
Well, thank you very much. Brad Ibrahim, he's been with us the last few minutes. We've been discussing a lot more the election. He's a peace ambassador for election 2016, wants to appeal to the various lead stakeholders in the election, and collaboratively with the media will bring you a lot more, well, common sense approach by way of having some tactical discussions and engagement and education on the very subject. Well, thanks for joining me, Brian.
You're most welcome, Robert.
All right.
It's nice seeing you.
Yeah, nice seeing you too. And as you recover, I wish you all the best, sir.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Next, we're going to have a legal practitioner, Gary Nimako. We're talking about that very LI 2224, which seemed to have raised eyebrows in many media stakeholder circles about whether it is intended to gag the media or not, and make sure that the content that is churned out is the best or not. And so Gary Nimako will be helping us do the discussions up next. We're discussing the media, content law, and what we need to do. Do stay on.